Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna do a little quick review on my project car, the 98 Z28 Camaro. As some of you may have known that are subscribers, you may have seen that I did a review on my Turbo 81 Camaro. Well, this has been the car that I've had since I was 18 years old, back in 2002. So I've had this car for quite a while. It's went over a lot of changes, a bunch of different phases, NA, but I figured, you know, in today's market, if you want to make power, you gotta have boost. So let me go ahead and show you what I got going on. We'll do a quick walk around real quick so you can see what I'm working with. Like I said, 98 Z28 Camaro, navy blue metallic. Oh Lord, that's sexy. Come around back here. Got the nice SLP loudmouth one, so you wake up the entire neighborhood. That all important Z28 badge. As you can see here, it's not the most perfect. You can see there when I go past that dent in the rear quarter panel. That got punched by a crackhead. I'll have to bring up that story later on. But yeah, this is what we're working with. Had the car forever. And as you can see now, if you look from the front, it definitely gives you a hint that it got something going on other than a stock LS1. Okay, let me show you what we got going on under here. To start with the basics, so what we got going on here is the car, as many of you know, all 4th gens Camaros came with 5.7 LS1s. So my LS1 wasn't in bad shape. It was actually running pretty good, already had a cam in it. I had 90,000 miles, which is, you know, relatively low considering the car is almost 20 years old, or actually is 20 years old this year. So the inherent problem with LS1s is they are what you would say is a Gen 3 motor. And what that tells you is not only is it a 24 times reluctor wheel, but the rods in it, I'll do a comparison on this later. I'll throw up an image like, bam. The rods are significantly thinner than in a Gen 4. So my issue was, you know, do I go down to the junkyard, pick up a regular 5.3 and LM7 with a cast iron block? Well, I wasn't willing to give up that 100 pounds on the nose, so I chose to go with an aluminum block 5.3. What is known is the L33. So what that is, an L33 is a higher compression engine that came in upscale trucks like a Denali or a Silverado Z71. It has a little bit more compression, a little under 10 compared to an LM7, which is around 9.4, 9.5, somewhere in there. So picking up that little extra compression can also help. On a turbo build, under 10-to-1 is, you know, significantly safe. You can go higher, but whatever. I didn't want to mess with any of the engine specs, so I went up to my local LKQ up in Detroit, picked up this sucker complete, brought it back home, and really the only things I did to the engine were to freshen it up. I believe this engine had, I want to say 120,000 miles on it, so I went ahead and blew it all apart. I wanted to check out the bearings. I'll have to throw up some pictures of those. They were actually pretty minty fresh. Wicked fresh. So the only thing I did as far as new parts was I went with a newer Melling M295 oil pump. I bought some new rings. I went ahead and honed out that the cylinders with a, I believe it's a Brush Research ball hone. I could throw in some video of that to show you what that process entails.
How's the company getting a good cross?
Very nice, I like.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, oil gonna like that. It was pretty easy, and it's, to me, a lot safer than using a 3-stone, which a lot of people have used for many years, but I don't know, the ball hone to me just tends to work out a little better. So I took the pistons apart, cleaned out the ring grooves, all that, got new Mahle rings, and according to their specs for the amount of power / boost I'm going to be running, I went ahead and gapped those to approximately 26 thousandths on the first and second ring. So other than that, the only other hardware inside we have is a different cam. I went with a Brian Tooley Racing / Lil Jon Motorsports Stage 2. It's a proven camshaft. There's tons of people running it with great success. So that covered the bottom end. Just the cam, the new oil pump, obviously a new timing chain, gapped the rings. All right, that bad boy's ready to roll. And with the aluminum block, I don't pick up any more weight than I did over the LS1. So if I want to go autocross or do whatever, we're covered there. As you know, the truck motors came with a higher intake on it. Obviously, I had to go with an LS car style intake. I went with the LS6 that I'd been running probably two builds ago. On the previous build, I was running a naturally aspirated LS1 with a set of Texas Speed PRC 225 heads and a fast 102 millimeter intake manifold, throttle body, all that jazz. So when I came to boosting it, there really was no need for that bigger intake in those heads. I talked to Texas Speed. They didn't recommend running that size head on a 5.3 boosted or NA. So I stuck with the factory 243s that come on the L33. And what they share that in common with is the Z06 Corvette and a lot of the newer 5.3s post, I want to say 2005. So it's a really good flowing head. The build before the fast intake, I ran the LS6 top end with the intake and the heads, and it had really good results. So needless to say, I sold those heads and the intake in order to fund the rest of the build. So let's see what else we got here. Throttle body. A lot of people are hung up with big old honking throttle bodies. I stuck with the stock 75 millimeter. That'll flow plenty of air for the power level I'm trying to make. The goal for this car is somewhere in the mid 600s, low 700s. If it turns out okay, we'll find out. I haven't got to tuning it yet. Being that the power goal is about 650, 700, haven't got to tuning it yet. Right now you'll see I have the stock PCM in place. Those savvy with F-bodies know that the 98 has a slower computer than the 99 through 02. So I went ahead and replaced that with a faster PCM, but I am strongly considering putting in the Microsquirt 3 gold box, the same one that I have in the 1981. And that just gives you a lot more flexibility because, for example, right now, the fuel I'm running on is strictly E85. And in order to have more accessibility at the pumps, like my family that lives in Pennsylvania, they really only have one E85 pump around. So I'd like that ability to run a flex sensor and be able to run pump gas as well as E85 and anywhere in between. But anyway, so with that power goal, I thought that throttle body would be plenty. So as far as we go with engine, it's pretty much sorted. You know, stock bottom end life, that's what we do. You know what I mean? So next step, since I mentioned the fuel, we'll cover the fuel system. So like I said, I'm running E85 in the stock tank. Got a set of Walbro 450 liters per hour. Just to put that into perspective for you, these cars come stock with a 190 liter per hour. And that was good all the way up to my previous build, which made, I'll have to get the dyno sheet, but I believe it was around 425 horsepower at the wheels, and that was with some 36-pound injectors. So now, with all that fuel pump, obviously with the 85, I need bigger injectors. So let's see if we can get a view in here. Let me go on the side with light. So we are running the Sloppy Mechanics recommended Bosch 210-pound injectors. Quite a jump up from the previous. And as you see here, I'm running a fast fuel rail. These are horrible, don't ever buy them. To get them right was a pain in the ass. I can cover that at a later time because don't even get me started. But yeah, the Bosch 210s, and because they are an LS3, LS7 size injector, I had to use these spacers. These are ICT Billet, yes. So we're running the 210-pound injectors with 900 liters per hour worth of pump. Right now, I'm running both pumps at the same time, no Hobbs switch, kicking a second pump on. That may change in the future when I go to a micro squirt. So in order to have the fuel system completely sorted for the power goal, I went with a true return style system. Got a Magnafuel regulator here, boost referenced, as well as fuel size, where I went front to back with -8 and a -6 return. So I think that'll be plenty to handle what I'm doing. Should be able to keep up with whatever demand the engine needs, especially in higher RPM/boost level. Unfortunately, the car's not lifted up, so I can't show you the entire fuel system. I mean, one pump looks like another. You know what AN lines look like, that whole jazz. In order to tie into the factory return system, I just went ahead and used an adapter fitting and used the stock feed rail as my return. Now with the fuel system out of the way, I can sort of cover the rest of the modifications to the car. Now, as far as powertrain, we have the factory race motor L33, and connected to that, let me see if I can get a view here, probably not. Again, everybody knows what a damn transmission looks like, but let's get a look here. In there, you see the big bad 4L80E. I knew the 4L60 wasn't gonna keep up. I was noticing some erratic behavior out of the 4L60E with 430 horsepower. So jumping that up to 100 horsepower, I knew I was gonna need something a little beefier. And I didn't want a turbo 400. A lot of guys run that in this car. I'm not a fan of a 3-speed transmission just because I absolutely hate driving on the highway and having the revs hitting the friggin' moon. That's the main reason I switched to a 5-speed in my 81 Camaro. Also with the powertrain, so obviously with the 4L80 transmission, I had to make a few changes. I'm using a PCM of NC adapter wiring harness. The 4L60E plugs directly into a plug and play adapter, and that goes right to the 4L80. Haven't had any trouble thus far. Anybody who knows about 4th gen Camaros, in addition to the 4L60E becoming a weak point, when you start jumping up over 400 horsepower, let's go around here to the ass end. Oh. As you can see here, maybe not, but we'll give you the best view we can. I have a Ford 8.8, which I scavenged out of a, what was it? A Ford Explorer. And that's what I call liberation. And what I did was sent that off to TNT Fab. I believe they are in Oklahoma. I took my stock 10-bolt tubes, cut off the outside.
Got my main man Paulie here cutting the tubes. Oh yeah, look at that fucking form. You look like you've held long things like that before. What's that? You look like you've held long things like that before. Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
You can see there that big weld. The outer tubes are still F-body, and the center chunk is the Ford 8.8. And I also have some custom axles in there, akin to like Moser. Again, I'm gonna have to pop out here so I can tell you what the exact axles are. Of course, I have my caps on there. Oh, they're Dutchman Townsend hybrid axles. So those are about as strong as, you know, your standard aftermarket Moser axles. And the reason for that, obviously we didn't want to blow up a 10-bolt. When I only had 375-ish rear wheel horsepower, I broke a 10-bolt. So obviously that wasn't going to hold up to launching this bitch off the lines with slicks or drag radials or whatever. So yeah, TNT was a real great company to work with. They took care of me. The guy I can't give him enough praises. He worked on that and got that back to me in pretty damn quick time, considering having to graft tubes onto a different rear end. He pretty much got that down to a science, so I recommend them. The rear end, I rebuilt that completely. Doing the little rear end setup here on the 8.8 from TNT Fab. Just checking backlash on the gears here, brand new ones. The spec is 8 to 12 thousandths. 11 and a half. We're gonna call that minty fresh. That's what I like. So these are the 31 spline axles that were found in the Explorer. If you got a Fox body 8.8, they would add 28 spline. So we went with that. I rebuilt the posi with a Ford Performance carbon clutch kit, all that jazz, set up the rear end. I'm running a set of 331 gears. And normally somebody would say, you know, 331 gears, what the hell are those highway ass things? But the reason I went with that is combined with the 4L80E gear set and doing a little math calculations and whatnot, I'll be able to trap somewhere between 144, 148 mile per hour with the size tire I'm going to be running, the rear gear, and the gearing in the 4L80. Now the 4L80, a lot of people like to just grab one out of the junkyard. Unfortunately, local to me, junkyards were asking over $1,000 for a junk transmission out of like a 2500 Chevy or GMC pickup truck. So what I did was I looked around and found a company up in Detroit who rebuilt the transmission completely to brand new fresh specs, and that was a little over $1,000. So comparatively, getting something that's junkyard and untested, which a lot of people have good luck with, not saying anything against that, but if I can spend the same money and get a rebuilt trans, I'm gonna go with that. And then also another consideration you need to take on a turbo build is the converter. So there's some budget ones you can go with. A PTC single disc billet is a popular choice among LS turbo guys. I went with a Circle D triple billet. I believe it's a Pro Series 258 millimeter converter. Now, if you look at Circle D's website, that's pretty much the top of the heap. When I called and gave them the specs of what I was trying to do with the car, the weight, the gearing, the transmission, all that jazz, that's what they recommended. So you know what? Those guys know more about torque converters than I do, so I went with what they recommended. It was a heavy hit. It was actually more expensive than the whole friggin' transmission, but whatever. If it works, I don't care. That's my type of deal. If I'm building a car and piecing it together, I'd rather pay more for quality parts and it not break than having to go back after the fact and replace some bullshit. I've done a transmission swap in this when I broke a 4L60E before, and I'll tell you what, that was not cool. These cars are actually a pain in the ass to work on compared to a lot. You know, you got your cowl here that covers probably, I don't know, 40% of the engine, so that's a pain in the ass. The transmission's all up in there. In order to fit the 4L80 in there though, I had to cut part of the bell housing casting. All the bolt holes still lined up and everything, but there was a couple extra castings that were mountings on a stock truck, so got rid of that, and it actually fit up there a lot better than I would have imagined. The biggest thing I can tell you if you're trying to put a 4L80 is the trans cooler, the trans lines. You have to get 90-degree AN fittings. As far as electronics and everything, for boost control, right now I have rigged up an AEM wideband, this one. I've had really good luck with those in the 81 Camaro, never had any problems out of it, so I went with that again. And for boost control, we're running the AEM True Boost. And what that is, it's a boost gauge digital as well as a boost controller. And once I take the radiator shroud off here, I'll show you what we got going on there, because obviously you're saying to yourself, oh yeah, he's going over the car here, but mentioned everything but the good shit, the turbo. So let me go ahead and take this bad boy off right here and I'll show you what we got going on down there. As far as this goes, any of you guys that are familiar with 4th Gen F bodies know this isn't off an LS car. An LS car would have the air filter built in and the lid sitting right here. This is actually off an LT1 car. And I wanted to do that rather than putting some chintzy ass piece of aluminum. Even though I have a bead roller and all that, I didn't want to try to fab up something. To me, this looks more factory. Somebody that's walking across this at a car show probably wouldn't know any better to know that something was done to this. You know, it takes somebody that knows what they're looking at to see what's going on. So let me take this bad boy off and I'll be right back. Quick tip for y'all. So I went to take off this shroud, 10mm bolts. All I had was a 1/2 inch laying around. Obviously that's about 13. That isn't gonna take it off, but I do have some pennies. Put those in to fill up the gap. Ta-da! Okay, now that I got the radiator shroud removed, we can start to see the cool parts. All right, the turbo, let's see if we can get you a good angle here. Sits right in front of the balancer there. The turbo I went with is a VS Racing Billet 7875. On my 81 Camaro, I was running a 7665, and that turbine was a little small, so while it would spool up quick, you could definitely tell it was running out of steam on the top end above 6,000 RPM. So I went with a little bigger unit. Obviously a billet's gonna flow a little more, lighter wheel, and that turbine housing being 10mm bigger should surely help out. And I don't think I'll have a problem hitting my power goal in the mid 600s. 700, remains to be seen. We'll see if I can get there tune-wise. So let's see here if we can get a view. See down in there we have our, this is a pretty terrible view, but I'll show you some pictures. I'll flash in those so you can see the actual turbo setup. The turbo setup is a Huron Speed. You can see our wrapped manifolds down in there. It is their T4 V3 AC kit. So as you can see down here, where my hand's pointing, that is the AC compressor. Now I don't have all the lines and everything hooked up. My evaporator's not in. I wanted to get the car running first, and then I'm gonna come back and attach all the AC lines and everything. But for ease of working around the engine bay, I left that out for the time being. The other major components we're running here is, see if we can get you a shot of the blow-off valve. Down in here, you'll see that black top. We have a 50mm blow-off valve. Let's see if we can get underneath here. All right, this is where the magic happens. Well, there isn't any magic happening because it's friggin' dark under here. Let me get you a light so you can see what the hell's going on. Okay, with the use of my iPhone here and magical technical shit, you can see we have the Wastegate pipe. Their previous kit's connected back in here to the down pipe. For some reason they decided that wasn't good, so now it's separate. So I made my own. May be a little low. We'll see if we hit any speed bumps and tear that off. If so, we'll make another one. But yeah, we have a Precision PW46 wastegate. See? And there you can see up in there part of the compressor housing. As you can see, I have a liberal use of heat tape. I heat tape the hell out of everything. I actually work in wire design, so that heat tape to me is a must when doing a turbo system, so we don't end up melting any vacuum lines, electricals, any of that shit. Now I also had an Slp Bowtie Grill, which I profiled in order to let some more air in here. Because as we all know, an air-to-air intercooler is only as good as the air moving through. So I have the intercooler stacked in front of the AC condenser and the radiator. I'm probably gonna have to either reinstall the stock or build a shield in order to direct all that airflow directly through. You can see on the back side here, the back side of the intercooler, as well as where I have the transcooler set up. That is a B&M supercooler. I believe part number is 70264. That worked really good on my previous setup with a 3600 stall. Transmission never got hot, so we're gonna run that again. Hopefully it gets enough air through the intercooler. If not, we'll relocate it. And then you can see the stack we got here. I have the factory radiator. I'm not a big fan of, going and buying a super expensive radiator if what you have works. So we're gonna try that out first. If it doesn't do the job, we'll do what we gotta do. Because unlike some people on YouTube, some people pay shops to build cars for them. And while that's great and dandy, and maybe if I had the money and didn't care about anything but driving the car, I'd do the same, but I work on all my own stuff, solve my own problems, and at the end of the day, I don't know. That just gives me a little bit more satisfaction. We also have the AC condenser. You see we have a pair of Derail 16295 fans. Those are rated at about 2,000 CFM a piece, so I don't think we'll have any problem cooling this beast down. What I did notice was that I'll let everybody know, when running 2 big Haas fans, the bigger injectors, the dual fuel pumps, the stock 100 amp F-Body alternator wasn't cutting it. So what I had to do was, I may have to pop some pictures up of this as well, but I put on a truck 145 amp. Now what's nice about that is, just like all other LS engines, all the accessories work on each other. So all I did was replace the stock F-Body alternator with a bigger one and just left the back bracket off that goes to the block, which is pretty much unneeded anyway. So once I installed that, now I'm seeing a steady 14.5 volts at idle, which, if you know anything about alternators, obviously their amperage jumps up as RPMs go up. So if you're able to deal with your electrical needs at idle, you'll be good at higher RPM. So that's pretty good. I also did, in order to accommodate the electrical system, we'll come over here. You can see one of these little battery terminals that looks like I might have some subwoofer somewhere. Glad to tell you, I do not, because I'm not a fan of blowing my eardrums out, shaking the damn car like a crazy animal, but it does help distribute the starter wire, the alternator charge wire, as well as the power feed from the alternator, which I upgraded to a 0 gauge welding wire. So that was needed when upgrading the alternator. There's no sense in upgrading it if the wire can't feed that extra amperage into the battery. So I also upgraded the battery. Before I had a 75 DLG with only 700 cold cranking amps. This one got 800, 1,000 in reserve. So as far as the electrical system, we're pretty much beefy now, and I don't think I'm gonna have an issue. When I had my tuner put the base tune on this stock computer, he was running into trouble with that smaller alternator. As the fans came on, the dual fuel pumps, all the electrical load would knock the voltage down, and that would mess with the alternator. It would mess with the tune as far as voltage to these big ass injectors. So that was throwing fueling way off, and as we all know, if fueling's off, lean or even super rich, you can run into some trouble there. So I went ahead and upgraded that, and that's one less thing to deal with. As far as PCV system, I have a little Norris catch can here that worked good in the previous build. Have that hooked up to the PCV valve back here, as well as a check valve, so we're not pressurizing that under boost. And for vacuum, I have a line coming directly off the manifold here over to a Vibrant vacuum block. That gives signal over to the boost reference fuel regulator, as well as the blow-off valve and the AEM boost gauge and boost controller. As far as suspension, I have a BMR Turbo K member, as well as the B&M tubular lower control arms. I also have subframe connectors. The rear, I have rear tubular control arms, sway bar, you know, pretty much everything you can do suspension wise. The only thing I don't have yet are shocks. I'm gonna see what we got going on launching off the line. Obviously some double adjustables in the back will help me put that power down a little bit easier, but the shocks are an easy change in, change out sort of deal. So I just wanted to get the car together, get it tuned, get it running. If you work on your own projects, you know how that goes. You can't really just put everything together all at once and expect it to run smooth. There's gonna be issues, there's gonna be problems. That's why I'm gonna keep a vlog of what happens on this project, so maybe it can help you guys in your builds. You can see the problems I had and then go back and change something that might be giving you issues. So I'm trying to think if we got anything else. Oh, as far as the fans go, I know a lot of people like to put them on a switch. I'm not a huge fan of that. So what I'm doing is inside the, let's see if I can take this apart without being a pain in the ass. I took the actual circuits for the factory fan control and wired those into a 3 relay setup. So we have, I believe it's left fan only, 2 fan low speed, and then 2 fan high speed. So I set it up just like the factory. Most people would say, oh, well, why didn't you just tie those fans into your factory wiring? Well, the way the electrical system's set up, I mean, this is a 20-year-old car, 20-year-old wiring, so I wanted to build an independent circuit with a fan control, because these babies draw a lot of amps, surprisingly. They pull about approximately 25-30 amps a piece, so that was another reason for me having to upgrade the alternator. As far as anything else fancy, it's really a pretty basic build. The reason I didn't build the actual turbo kit on this one is because of such tight fitment. I didn't want to run into timing issues as far as spending a long time fabricating. On the 81 Camaro, it was a little bit easier because the engine bay is a lot bigger. These shock towers take up a lot of space in the engine bay compared to just an inner fender in the 81 Camaro, which I could cut, massage. Love you long time. I could massage the fenders on that and get it to fit how I wanted. I wanted to go with a proven company on this. I know On3 makes kits, but I've heard of people having issues with those cracking, welds, breaking, not fitting right. So, you know, I just went with the Huron Speed, but that compressor off the turbo feeds over to our teeth here, intercooler, comes over, pops up right in here. I wanted to get this car up and running before I start playing with making it look good. To me, rather than spending, let's say, $1,000 repainting a new bumper, I'd rather spend that on putting a drag pack on the car and going faster. All right, guys, I appreciate you coming back to the channel, checking out my 98 Z28 Camaro. You can expect more videos in the future, seeing what's going on, if we can hit our goals. I don't think I mentioned that, I only mentioned power. Like I said, I'd like to make 650-ish, I'd be satisfied. If we can make 7 on kill, beautiful. But the car weighing approximately, let's say, 3,400 pounds maybe, with adding that bigger trans in the turbo kit. From my calculations online, if I want to hit my goal, which is a 9, and when I say 9, I mean a 9.999999999. I'd like to be able to run low 10s consistently, but turning on kill, I'd like to just be able to run that number. We're going to be putting a cage in there. I'll show the video install on that. Looking to go with a Wolf bolt-in in order to get us certified all the way down to 10. And then if we can go to one of these local tracks, which the ones I go to technically don't really harp on safety too hard, but when you go to the bigger events like LS Fest, they want to see the cage in there if you're running 10s. I won't get into the whole time versus safety equipment, NHRA rules. You can read that for yourself. I'm sure I'll cover that more when I do the cage install. The ones I go to. But yeah, just want to bring you guys on the journey, see what kind of time we can get out of this bitch. The ultimate goal is in September to run LS Fest Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then head Sunday down to Atlanta and try to do drag week as well in the street eliminator class, which is a 10.0. So, you know, yeah, just want to bring you guys on the journey. Top competitors are going to be running as close to 10 as possible. The ultimate goal is in a perfect world, I'd be able to do LS Fest and drag Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll see if in March I can get Sunday down to Atlanta quick enough and in order to do drag week as well. Because that in the street eliminator class, which is a 10.0. That's what I'm hoping for. I think it's always good to have goals are going to be running as close to 10 as possible. Whether we break something in a perfect world, the rear end, I'd be able to do LS Fest. The trans rebuild's terrible, and the turbo doesn't do the power we want. We'll see if in March I can get on the internet quick enough in order to even get in drag week, because that bitch sells out in like 5 minutes flat. But that's what I'm hoping for. Bottom line, I think it's always good to have goals of where you want to be. Whether we break something, blow the rear end up. Anyway. The trans rebuild's terrible, the turbo doesn't do the power we want, the engine throws a rod. It doesn't matter, because you know what? At the end of the day, it's a machine. I'll go back and I'll fix the damn thing. I'm going to keep plugging at it until it does what I want it to do. Bottom line. Ain't nobody paying nothing here. It's built, not bought for sure. But anyway, check for more videos. I have a giveaway coming soon for a Summit card, trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If y'all guys can like this, share it, recommend it to other people, I'd appreciate it. But mainly I'm just doing it for fun and to show you guys what I got going on. Later.